What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with First Read Fantasy, and today we're gonna keep it light. It's a Saturday. We're gonna go ahead and do a best ball draft. I do want to give people a chance to, go ahead and join the stream, as well as go ahead and join the draft with myself. But before I guess before we go ahead and you know, jump into the draft again, just want to give people a chance to go ahead and join the stream as well as give them a chance to join the draft. But some recent, I guess, NFL news we can cover. I think one of the biggest things that just recently happened is the Eagles went ahead and traded Bryce Huff to the 49ers. And so that's a pretty nice get for San Francisco. I mean, it seems like they've done everything to address the pass rush for their team. That offensive line still has some concerns. But that's one of the most notable things that happened recently from an OTA standpoint. Joe Flacco came out pretty much, and I don't expect him to say anything less, but pretty much came out and said that he's not there to be the mentor. It's not the main focus for him, right? I mean, if Flacco comes out and says, sure, I'm here to mentor, right? Then people might question his work ethic, right? How much does he want the job, right? I'm sure these guys are going to learn things as they see a veteran prepare. And I think it's a fine answer from Flacco, right? I mean, he's not doing this. I mean, you could say he's doing this for fun, but the dude's like, I think 40 years old, right? Like, if he didn't think he had a chance to start, I mean, maybe he'd want to be a backup. I'm sure he's making good money to be a backup, but I'm sure at this point in his career, he probably would just call it quits if he thought there was, you know, if there was a good chance he doesn't start, right? And so if I had put my chips in the middle of the table, I would probably go ahead and guess that Flacco is the starter week one for the Browns. I do think it's kind of a not necessarily a mistake, but almost a miss for the NFL to not have the Browns on Hard Knocks this year. I know. I mean, it probably would have been a giant headache, but at the same time, if you're into entertainment and reality TV, that's probably the best you're going to get with everything going on. But some other news, I guess, in the recent days, I guess that's probably the most recent stuff. Not a ton of movement, right? I mean, I don't get too worked up about the OTAs and what goes on in OTAs. I mean, I don't put a ton of stock in it, right? If there's rookies, right, that are trying to make their mark, I think there is some stock in OTAs for that, right? For the quarterbacks, it's just good to see guys pick up the playbooks if they're rookies, right? But there's not a ton to take away, in my opinion. Um, from OTAs in general. But yeah, once we get a couple more people in here, I'll go ahead and do this draft. I'll probably start the draft in 2-3 minutes. And just go ahead and kick it off. But outside of that, like I said, I mean, there's really not a ton going on as of late, right? I mean, let me take a look here really quick. Yeah, I mean, it seems like things are working, with Fields and the Jets. I'm not a big Fields fan. If you've paid attention to me, right, I'm not necessarily the biggest. Not necessarily saying I don't support him, but I'm not the biggest believer. But when it comes to Fields, right, it seems like maybe the right coach to set a culture there. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to put a ton of stock into the Jets. But I mean, some other things. Shador Sanders last in line in the quarterback competition right now. Again, it's OTAs. I'm not worried too much, right? I mean, I think I'd be concerned if anybody but Flacco was, the guy. I mean, unless they spent first round capital, second round capital, right? I mean, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, right? Shador Sanders, right? No need to put any of them getting the starter reps right now. Just give it to Flacco and let the rest of the guys earn it in that room, in my opinion. Um, Now, Joe Mixon, a little bit interesting, right? There's some concern, I guess, with the age and injuries, right? But he's dealing with an injury at the moment as well. Again, it's early, but I guess he was seen walking in a boot, and he did not participate in OTAs. But it's reportedly a not serious injury. So I guess apparently he played through an ankle injury in the playoffs, and there's speculation that maybe he's not 100% healthy. From that, but still a little bit of concern if an ankle injury from the playoffs still has Mixon banged up. We're 5 months past that. But again, older players, healing slower, and we don't know. Maybe he re-aggravated it training in the off season. But again, this is just kind of, I mean, we're at a point right in the off season where fantasy starts to kind of pick up, right? We're starting up best ball, but there's not a ton of movement and a ton of information right now. I know, I mean, there's some guys holding out, at least from a rookie standpoint, because they're waiting to ink some deals. From a fantasy standpoint, really not a ton to make note of. I mean, Audric Estime apparently in line for more touches. We'll see how that goes, right? Denver drafts RJ Harvey. If there's one fantasy guy that you should probably pay attention to when it comes to Denver, it's probably me. And I'll tell you that I think Estime is going to get touches. I think it's really more, the concern is more for Jaleel than anybody. But I think it also, there's something to be said about the fact that Estime wasn't even suited up for their playoff game as a healthy scratch. And Tyler Batty was playing in that playoff game after going back from like 6 to 7 weeks off an injury. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, RJ Harvey's the guy. I'm not really concerned if Estime even works in. Maybe some people concerned about goal line work. Again, I'm not overly concerned, but I don't know. I know we have some people in the YouTube channel already watching live. We got some people here on Twitter. I'm going to give it 2 minutes. If you are here and do want to draft, please drop a comment below just so that I know you're here. But I'm going to pull up the draft board and we're going to go ahead and do a Best Ball Mania $25 entry. Now, Best Ball Mania, right? Like I try not to enter too many of these higher cost entry tournaments for best ball early in the off season. I'll flirt around and do a Best Ball Mania like today every once in a while, but there's a lot of theories out there. Is there some advantage of, you know, is there some advantage of drafting early, right? Taking advantage of some ADPs while we don't have some stuff sorted out, or is there an advantage of waiting and not taking a chance and not putting a ton of money into entries because maybe you do want to hear about more information or you don't want to take the risk of guys getting injured in training camp, right? So with all that being said, I mean, I'm totally cool. I try not to overextend myself. Once I get into July is when I start to really draft a ton of lineups. A lot of these best ball bros are drafting and trying to fill as many lineups as they can now. And I don't deny that there is some advantage, but for me, I play best ball. I enjoy it, but I'm not over here doing 150 entries like some guys. And if there are, more power to them. But if you pay attention to me, my thing is redraft, dynasty, right? Auction, redraft. So without all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and enter this thing. I see people here live on YouTube, but I don't see anybody commenting that they want to go ahead and jump in. So I'm gonna go ahead and just enter this right now, and we'll get this thing started. So as I wait for this to fill, we have a couple spots open and left. Um, um, So we have a couple more spots to necessarily fill, but I do want to talk about some, at least some ADP risers and fallers. Um, the guy that's risen the most, at least in the past month, is surprisingly DK Metcalf. On Underdog ADP right now, DK Metcalf is the wide receiver 29. And from ADP, at least actually, this is just from the last week. He's up 3.7 spots. So he's getting drafted at 49.9 right now. And it's the highest rise out of anybody. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I am not super sold on K Metcalf. I mean, wide receiver 29. It's a palatable cost. To go ahead and take him. I mean, you're looking at around round 5, round 6 for him. And I don't really necessarily mind the cost, but really don't want I mean, I really don't wanna take a swing. I mean, I'm actually that's actually more end of round 4, on the turn of round 5. I don't necessarily want to take that chance on DK Metcalf right now. I mean, is it an extremely high cost? Not necessarily, but guys going around DK Metcalf, Zay Flowers goes behind him. George Pickens, I'll take DK over George Pickens. Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle. I'd prefer Jalen Waddle over DK Metcalf, to be completely honest with you. Jordan Addison, Jacoby Myers, Jerry Judy, Debo Samuel. I think at this part of the at this part of the draft, and I would just prefer taking a chance on some running backs. Again, it depends on your build, but I mean, I'd rather take a chance on RJ Harvey, Kenneth Walker, right? Those are guys that go right behind DK Metcalf, 4, 5, 6 spots behind him. And some stuff about DK Metcalf, right? I mean, he had the really strong season year 2. We looked at it, and in 2020 he averaged 17 points per game, which was good enough for wide receiver 10 on the season. 10 total touchdowns, 1,300 yards. He's only eclipsed 10 or more touchdowns one other time since 2020, and he's gone over 1,300 yards a total of 0 times. And it's not for a lack of volume, right? I mean, he's consistently had 129 targets, was the year that he had the career year, sophomore season, right? In 2021, he had 129 targets. So back to back years with the same amount of targets. In 2022, he had 141 targets. He caught more passes, but had less touchdowns. 13.3 points per game, a total of almost 4 points less per game, right? 120 targets in 2023 and 108 in 2024. Obviously, he missed 2 games. He had a really nice, strong out of the gate. But obviously we kind of know what happened there. But I just, to me, I feel like we're chasing that second year for DK Metcalf. And when I take a look at DK Metcalf's and you look at his numbers a little bit deeper, right? I mean, you might sit there and say, okay, no George Pickens, the volume should be there. It's not like DK Metcalf hasn't had the volume, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy who's seeing around 120 targets a season. How much does that go up? And even with additional targets, I don't know that necessarily boosts him that much, right? He ranked 100th in contested catch rate uh, last season. 19%. 19% of the passes that were thrown to him that were contested catches, he pulled down 19 of them. This is a freak athlete. To pull down 19% of your contested catches is absolutely terrible for a guy his size. He should be winning at least 50% of those passes. So I'm not really in on DK Metcalf at the moment. I don't know. I'd hope that his price drops a little bit. At wide receiver 29, you would sit there and think, okay, yeah, he's probably going decently late, but the at the end of the fourth round, I just to me it's just a heavy cost. I'd rather take chances on other spots. I'd rather take my first tight end in George Kittle over DK Metcalf, who goes a couple spots behind him. I'd rather take RJ Harvey. I'd even probably rather go Joe Mixon, who I'm not even super high on this year. Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery. Like I look at the tier after these guys. I'd rather wait and take a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who goes almost 3 rounds behind him. I'd rather take a chance on Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden. Like it all depends on the cost and what you're willing to spend. But I'm just again not super sold on DK Metcalf. I don't care too much about the volume for him. But that's really the rant for me. Scott said, "Let's go," and said DK Metcalf sucked with a good quarterback. I agree, right? I mean, look, we're assuming, right, that Rodgers is probably going to sign, right? I mean, I think we can certainly say that that's a very strong possibility. But I mean, I think Rodgers will boost him. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't know how much. Geno Smith is a better quarterback than I think people give him credit for. And I mean, he can. I mean, maybe Geno doesn't have the legs. He's not as exciting, but he can operate 3 levels of the football field at a really strong level. But let's talk about this draft so far. So I go with Bijan Robinson. I'm here at the 102 spot. I'm not gonna lie, I really prefer the back end of drafts this season so far. I think there is a ton of value at the back end of drafts. I love all 4 of these wide receivers. And if I can pair up one of these 4 wide receivers and Genty, who I've been in drafts, he can fall somewhere around here. Or if I can pair one of them with Christian McCaffrey, like, I mean, I really, really like that spot. Even Derrick Henry, who has yet to go off the board, Devon A. Chain, Jonathan Taylor, like, pairing up one of those wide receivers, to me, you're getting an anchor running back with an elite wide receiver. And yeah, I am comfortable saying that all 4 of those guys are elite, right? We're not talking about a dynasty elite. There's only Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase right now, in my opinion, in that elite tier. But when we talk about, I mean, Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, St. Brown, all of these guys, except maybe St. Brown, I think these 3 guys at the back end here have the ceiling to finish as the wide receiver one. I do think that's a very strong possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but their ceiling is there for that, right? And I think you really get a ton of value at the back end here. Now, you can make the case in the front end too. Don't get me wrong. If Devon A Chain, if you're high on him, right? If that offense can be efficient with which there is some concerns, if you compare can pair up Devon A Chain, with a CeeDee Lamb or a Puka, like that's pretty great. But I just think like there's a chance that there's not a huge difference between like Puka and these guys, while there is could and very well could be a strong gap between Christian McCaffrey and say Devon A Chain if McCaffrey's healthy. But both guys have their risks, of course, right? Quarterback situation for the Dolphins. You have the health injury history for Christian McCaffrey, right? And we can get into that a little bit later. But I'm on the clock here with 7 seconds left. I'm going to go ahead and just anchor down my running back position here. I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor. I look at a lot of these wide receivers here. I don't look at any of them and really feel extremely high or strong. The guys I actually really like the most here is JSN and Devontae Adams. I like these guys right now more than the 4 up here with Garrett Wilson, Terry, Rashi Rice. I'm gonna I'm gonna go ahead and take JSN over Garrett Wilson over Terry McLaurin. I like JSN and I'll take him there. So that's a pretty solid start for me. So I have Bijan, I have Jonathan Taylor, and I have Jackson Smith in Jigba. And I like that start for sure. I definitely like that start. I mean, I feel like you feel pretty strong usually about the first 3 rounds, so we'll see how it ends up. But I feel like everybody usually likes their draft in the beginning, and then it's about how you land the plane, right? That's what they always say. It's about how you land the plane. But Let's talk. I want to talk about Terry McLaurin for a second here. Terry McLaurin, I have some concerns about him this season as well. I mean, he's bordering a round two wide receiver right now. We're talking high third round, right? There's definitely some possibilities that he's going to go in some drafts at the beginning of the third over some of these guys. There are people that are going to like him. He's pairing up with the new quarterback and Jaden Daniels, and he's super exciting. I have concerns about Terry McLaurin. I love Terry McLaurin, as a player. I think he's going to be he's a good wide receiver. The problem with Terry McLaurin is this is a dude that had 13 total touchdowns last season. Okay, he played every single game last season. Okay, and with 13 total touchdowns, he didn't crack the top 12 in points per game. Okay, there is going to be regression. I do not expect Terry McLaurin to score 13 touchdowns again, like we saw last season. Now, Jaden Daniels and him, one more year to get better and build that connection. I expect that to be a positive. Don't get me wrong, but they add Debo Samuel, who is another target in this offense, right? Terry McLaurin, outside of his rookie season, he had 7 touchdowns his rookie year. He has not gone over 5 touchdowns in any season outside of last year, right? He's been in the NFL for 6 years. He had 7 as a rookie, didn't get past 5 any other time. And then last year with Jaden Daniels, where he was practically a one-man show in that receiving game, if you want to count Zach Ertz. I like Zach Ertz. I think he's like a Jason Witten-esque player at the tight end position at this point in his career. Not a lot of yards after catch, but really knows how to find the soft zones in a defense. But when you think about Terry here, 117 targets last year, right? As a one-man show. That's down from the year before where he had 130. They insert Debo Samuel, right? I, I just like you got to assume that I don't think he's going to go much farther down than 117. Don't get me wrong. That connection should be stronger, so you can expect that the targets will stay the same or maybe even go up a little bit. I don't think Debo Samuel is necessarily going to be a target hog, but I mean, last year in a career season with 13 touchdowns to not crack the top 12 is kind of nuts. And when you look at it, I mean, he barely got over 1,000 yards, 1,096. He played in all 17 games. I mean, that's concerning on 82 catches, right? Can he be that efficient? I don't know. But we're sitting here and I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to take Cortland Sutton. I thought about maybe Zay Flowers. I can talk about that pick in a minute, but to close out the Terry McLaurin conversation here, I see regression for Terry. I don't like his cost on where he's going. I don't see him as a high end third round. If you're telling me that Terry's a fourth round guy, I can eat that, right? Maybe the ADP starts to swing as we get towards, the middle to the end of the offseason and closer to the NFL season. But I just really can't stomach that cost, guys. I don't love it. And like I said, I have some concerns. So I will be avoiding Terry at that cost unless he comes down. Maybe I'll have exposure to Terry, but it's not going to be at a high end third round pick. I just see regression for him. But that's going to close that out. Let me talk about where I'm at on the board and what's gone on so far. So right now, I have Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, RJ Harvey. I'm not really too concerned about buys. I mean, look, I try to make up for buys towards the end of the draft, right? To make sure I have coverage for every single week. But I don't let bye weeks dictate who I'm going to take, right? I just can't, right? If I'm in love with a guy, I just don't want to take a guy, like not take a player I love because I'm worried that like that week is not going to be that strong. If I'm in an eliminator or like the weekly, where it's a little different, like you have to advance every week. Okay, I understand that. But if I can grab a floor guy, a high floor guy towards the end of the draft, right, like last couple rounds, like to make up for maybe a couple of my studs being on buys, I'd rather go that route. Now, I take JSN, I take Cortland Sutton. I took Sutton, and I'm going to show the board here. But look, I take Cortland Sutton at the 411 spot. And Cortland Sutton, right, going into his second year with with Bo Nix, right? Cortland Sutton, if Terry McLaurin was priced at where Cortland Sutton was, I'd feel much more comfortable. Cortland Sutton and Terry McLaurin are two guys that have a cost. I mean, that are 29 years old, right? Cortland Sutton didn't necessarily have, Terry McLaurin's numbers last year where, he scored 13 touchdowns, but Sutton scored 8, right? And he's also kind of a quote unquote one man show, but Cortland Sutton was less than 2 points per game lower than Terry McLaurin last year. Okay. We're talking about two guys in Sutton and McLaurin who don't have the best yards after catch, right? Like they're big body, prototypical X wide receivers. And I'd rather take Cortland Sutton, right? I mean, a full round and a half behind Terry McLaurin, right? Both guys are paired up with rookie quarterbacks going into year 2, right? Cortland Sutton actually had more targets than Terry McLaurin. He had 135 last year. He was off in terms of yardage from Terry by 10, 12. Those touchdowns for Terry is what really ended up giving him that edge of not even an extra 2 points per game over Cortland Sutton. I would expect that Cortland Sutton and Terry, right, can both move forward and have a nice next step with that rookie quarterback. But I would much rather Cortland Sutton at his ADP over Terry McLaurin. I can't stomach Terry's, high end third round cost. Where with Cortland Sutton, I'm getting him at the back end of the fourth round, early fifth round, right? Like that's makes sense for both of their skill sets. And Cortland Sutton also in 2023 had 10 touchdowns, right? Like he's coming off of back to back years where Sutton's actually had more seasons of over 5 touchdowns than Terry McLaurin. And so I'll take Cortland Sutton at his cost. I'm not saying I would take Cortland Sutton over Terry this year. I prefer Terry if it was straight up. But I'm taking Cortland Sutton at that cost. I just don't want to touch Terry at that high end third round. Now, I'm on the clock yet again. And I like Ricky Pearsall here. I'm going to go ahead and take Ricky Pearsall. I talked about him before. My wide receiver room is not the strongest compared to the running backs, so that's why I'm going to try to hit it here. And then I'll probably try to hit some later round running backs because I do like when it starts to kind of get to this area. There's a couple of targets that I have, but overall, I don't mind the build. I like taking a guy like Ricky Pearsall because when we talk about stacks in best ball, I can certainly grab, a guy like Brock Purdy possibly to stack. I can grab Bo Nix soon. I could even probably get Sam Darnold. I have flexibility with stacks on the quarterbacks here. I'm up here with my next pick, and there are a couple guys, you know, man, I I don't have a lot of Jacoby Myers. Um, man, I'm going to take Jaden Reed for the upside. I don't love Jaden Reed, but he's going to be my fourth wide receiver. He provides some pop. He doesn't have, I don't really look at the buys, but just to notate the buys, he doesn't have any buys, with any of the other wide receivers. So that's good. But Jaden Reed just has more pop. I'm going to get some exposure to Jacoby Myers at some point this season. But I'm going to go with Jaden Reed just because there's home run hitting potential there. I'm going to get to Scott here. Scott, what's up, man? Scott said, Flowers scares me. His ceiling is awesome, but his floor is underground. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel with Luther Burden a little bit, except Flowers is in an offense that, has a more of a running quarterback, but has much less weapons. I and then he also said, Scary Terry had a lot of touchdowns last year. Can he repeat it? Yeah, I think Terry's going to regress. I don't think Terry's going to go back to 5 touchdowns, but I don't see him scoring 13. I could 100% be wrong. I just 13 touchdowns based on his history. I don't believe he replicates that, especially with the addition of Deebo Samuel. And the truth is, he's in an offense with a quarterback that likes to run the ball in the red zone, right? So I definitely think that there is some possibility there. He's going to regress. He's not topping 13 again. I would sit there and if I had to guess, I'd probably say he's somewhere around the 8 to maybe 10. And that's fine. That is fine. But not at the ADP of a high end third round pick. It's just that's a pretty hefty cost. I want to take a look and see since I have some time here before my next pick. I want to look at the points per game and just at least compare compare where from a points per game perspective, how far off Terry is, or how much higher he is than some other guys, right? So Terry McLaurin last year, let's see, at the wide receiver position, where are you, Terry? Right. So Terry, 15.75 points per game. And again, he was 14th last year in points per game, not inside the top 12. Um, if you go down and you look at Jamison Williams, right? Or Jerry Judy. I mean, we're talking about him not even beating them out by a point more per game. Terry McLaurin, 15.75, Jerry Judy, 14.17, Jamison Williams, 14.15, Jacoby Myers, 14.53. Jacoby Myers played 15 games. Terry played 17, right? I mean, we're talking about a 1 point difference from him and Jacoby Myers last year, right? I got to go for a little bit more upside there. That's probably again an area that I'm going to be hyper targeting. The running back position very likely, or even like the JSNs, the Devonte Adams. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I prefer Devonte Adams over Terry McLaurin this year. If I'm on the clock, I'm taking Devonte over Terry. Right? That's me. I think Devontae's in for a very nice season. I'm gonna get into Devontae in a little bit, but my pick's on the way, so let me just prep for that. I will say that the tight end position outside of George Kittle, Trey McBride, and Brock Bowers, I'm absolutely kicking that and punting that position. I don't want anything. I don't understand the Jonnu Smith, being what is he? Tight end 4 or 5, being tight end 6. I don't get that one at all, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I really don't understand that. So we're sitting here. There's a couple quarterbacks I like. Um, there's some wide receivers I like too. So this is how I look at it, right? I'm gonna take Cam Scatterboo because I like him. Um, and again, nice that I get the bye week kind of still lines up here, so no stacks on buys. But the quarterbacks are in a pretty similar tier for me. Baker, Kyler. I actually have Bo Nix ahead of Kyler. I have Caleb Williams and Justin Fields close together too. So I'm going to get one of these guys. In this situation, I'm going to take Bo if he's available to me. And if Bo goes off the board here, I'll probably take Baker Mayfield and maybe try to get a late stack with somebody to salvage the stack. But that's kind of my mindset there. That's kind of what I'm looking at if on the board here. I try to draft in tiers. I look at the running back position. I take Scatterboo there because I don't love here in the drafts. I like Sharps, but outside of that, I'm not really in love with this area. At the wide receiver position, I'm pretty sure there's some guys down here. I like this 3 bunch right here. I could hope to get one of those guys. So I'm gonna stop blabbering. I'm gonna take Bo just so I can get the stack with Sutton, which I feel good about. And I get the RJ Harvey stack, right? I expect RJ Harvey to be catching balls out of the backfield, from Bo Nix. I definitely think that's going to be a connection through the air. And then let me take a look here. Yeah, Devontae. Yeah, let's break down Devontae Adams here real quick. Hang on 1 second, fellas. So Devontae Adams, when I look at this LA Rams offense, right? You know, I I absolutely love the landing spot, right? I've talked about it before. Um, let me just pull up the let me just pull up the stats from 2024 for this offense as well. So I just have a good base here, just so that I'm giving you the best stats. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm 16 picks away. Um, so Devonte Adams, right? I absolutely love the landing spot for Devonte Adams. When you look at him last year, look, he's 32 years old. I think Devonte Adams can have a very, very strong finish to his career. A Randy Moss esque finish to his career. I'm not talking about the 20 plus touchdowns in his first year with Tom Brady. I'm talking about the years after that, where he was still a very solid producer, over 10 plus touchdowns, right? Over 1,000 yards. Like, I think Devontae Adams is going to be a focal point in this offense. I'm not worried about Puka Nacua either. I think there's a very strong possibility that both of these guys are top 12 wide receivers when the year is over. You look at Devontae Adams, 141 targets last year while missing 3 games. I get it. He had his boy Aaron Rodgers, and you can sit there and talk about that, but the year before that with the Raiders, he had 175 targets in 17 games, right? So I mean, you can tout the Aaron Rodgers thing all you want, right? They're buddies. They have a connection, right? He was peppered with targets. I totally understand that. But he had 175 targets the year before, right? I mean, it's not like it's all because of Aaron Rodgers. He did that with Gardner Minshew and really bad quarterback play and Aiden O'Connell, right? I mean, this is a guy that had 180 targets in 2022, right? Which was the most amount of targets he had in his entire career. And so when I look at this offense, right, and I look at last season, Cooper Cup played 12 games, right? He had 100 targets. Puka Nacua played 11 games. He had 106 targets. Why can't Devontae Adams, right, replicate that? He is going to play in that Cooper Cup role. That is an awesome fit for him. Matthew Stafford and this offense with Sean McVay, I think they're extremely excited to get this guy in the building, right? I think he's going to fit this offense. They don't have a lot of weapons in the pass game, right? I mean, they drafted my guy in Ferguson at the tight end position from Oregon, right? I'm excited for that. I don't know how big of a season he's going to have year one, right? But I like him for the future. But outside of Puka Nacua, who is consistently hurt. If Puka Nacua gets hurt, this is a high end funnel offense, right? Like Puka Nacua, if he goes down, like Devontae Adams, that target share could be massive, right? And you're looking at an offense that Demarcus Robinson had 64 targets in last year, right? You had Jordan Whittington with 28. Tyler Johnson had 41. He's no longer there, right? I mean, Kyron Williams had 40, right? I expect him to catch the football again. Tutu Atwell had 62. We're talking about 100 targets between Tutu and Tyler Johnson. I mean, 100 targets, right? Like Devontae Adams should see 130 targets minimum this season. I think it's an awesome landing spot for him. I'm extremely bullish on the landing spot for Devontae Adams. I don't think he's showing signs of slowing down, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy where, I mean, from a contested catch rate, right? 43%, right? 49th in the league. He DK Metcalf, who we talked about before, had a 19%, right, contested catch rate, and he's much younger, right? They're both similar-ish size. DK's probably even bigger, at least from a muscle standpoint. And I'm not sitting here saying Devontae, look, 49th, 43% in terms of contested catch rate, right? On 23 targets, right? He came down with almost half of those. But at the same time, like, I mean, we're talking about a guy that just really hasn't shown many signs of slowing down, right? I mean, he was 26 when it came to win rate versus man coverage. Is that the best in the world? Absolutely not. But that's still pretty solid for a guy at his age to be winning against man coverage at that rate. So I really like Devontae Adams this year. I'm taking him over Terry 9 times out of 10. I'm on the board here. I'm gonna go ahead and get another pick with Marvin Mims. Right, I'm pretty much going for a very heavy Denver stack. Not not meant to do that. Completely honest with you, I try to stay away from Broncos sometimes, but just the way the board fell, I got Cortland Sutton in the second round. I have Mims. I ended up getting Evan Ingram there, and I stack it with Bo Nix and RJ Harvey. I'm fine with it. I expect this offense to be much better. From last year, take another step forward. So I'm excited about it. And let's see. So Scott said Adams is going to kill it, but that means has me a little afraid of Kyron Williams' touchdowns this year. Yeah, I think that's a good point actually. It's actually a really really good point, Scott. When you think about Kyron Williams and his touchdowns last year, Kyron Williams, at least from a opportunity share, uh, top of the league, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy who, from an opportunity share standpoint, number two in the NFL, snap share number one. They're bringing in Jarquez Hunter, right? I'm not worried about Blake Corum. I think Blake Corum is a guy that's really there to, like, in case Kyron gets hurt, right? Like, they don't have very different skill sets. Now Jarquez Hunter provides that explosiveness, and yes, I get it. Everybody wants to continue to talk about Jarquez Hunter, Jarquez Hunter, Jarquez Hunter. I get it, right? He's explosive. Kyron Williams, right? That the explosiveness is not there compared to him, but Kyron Williams also had better hands coming out of college, right? As a receiver. But when you look at those total touchdowns, 16 for Kyron last year, 15 the year before. If those touchdowns start to come down, there is some concern, right? I mean, 34 receptions, 32 receptions, right? Like, he's not catching the ball and giving us like 40 to 50 receptions like some of these high floor, high end running backs. That those touchdowns are important, right? It's a good point. Kyron Williams, we likely see somewhat regression from him from the touchdown perspective. I would assume if Puka's healthy and if Devontae Adams is playing like we expect him to play. Kyron Williams right now, at least in drafts, is look, he's early-ish third round. Actually, no, he's actually back into the third round. That's a fine cost. I'm okay taking a chance on Kyron for that cost. That's not too crazy. That's going behind Chase Brown. I'd be okay with it. You're getting Kyron at a cheaper cost than you did last year when everybody said that Kyron was going to lose his job to Blake Corum. But it's a good point, Scott. It is. I definitely would expect some touchdown regression. But either way, I mean, you're talking about a guy right now who he's being drafted as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's being drafted as the RB12, right? I mean, I'm good with that. I'm good. I'm very good with that. I actually would prefer Brees Hall, personally, who's going a little bit behind him, but you can make the argument that Kyron's in a much better offense, right? I think Brees Hall is the better player. I think he's going to catch more passes. I think Justin Fields is going to dump the football off a ton, and there's not a ton of weapons outside of Garrett Wilson in that offense. But I think Kyron Williams at RB12 is a good cost. And back into the third round, I think he probably rises a little bit. I don't expect like a guy like Tyreek Hill. I'm not taking Tyreek Hill over Kyron Williams. I'm just not doing that. And Tyreek Hill right now is going high second round. Right. I'm not good with that, to be honest with you. I'm not, I go back and forth with Tyreek Hill this year. This offseason, I flip flop up and down with Tyreek of, am I in on him? Do I want him? Do I not want him? I don't know how I feel with Kyron Williams this year, to be completely honest with you. I'm not Kyron Williams, Tyreek Hill. My head's all over the place and I'm on the clock. So let me just pick here and stop blabbering. Mm, oh man, I'm running out of time and I do not like this board at all. God, I took Michael Penix. I didn't really love that, but I'll bite the bullet on that one. I mean, I guess with the Penix, the good news is that Kyle Pitts is here. I don't really love Kyle Pitts either, but there are some cheaper stacks that I can probably target. And I do have Bijan, right? But I'm not looking at like quarterback quarterback running back stack, quote unquote, and getting super excited. Though again, Bijan Robinson is a guy that's going to catch at least 50 passes this year, to be expected. So there are some other guys, and you can get Darnell Mooney. So maybe I'll take a chance. Sometimes the problem with these stacks, though, in best ball is you find yourself pushing for stacks, and I don't love that. I don't like having if I'm not in love with Darnell Mooney, but I'm just taking him because he fits into the stack. Like I hate that. I hate that process. I hate drafting like that. To be honest with you, um, I'm not really. I just kind of hate when that happens. I don't love to force stacks too much. At this point, um, I'm gonna get some insurance, and we're talking stacks. I'll take Tyler Algier. I'll get some insurance for Bijan. I'm cool with that. Now, go ahead and sip my beer. So I'm gonna pull up the board here so you guys have a chance to take a look and see where we are at. Let's see. Mm-mm. 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 All right, so let's take a look at some other guys, at least that are rising, and then I'll take a look at some guys that are falling right now from an ADP standpoint. So RJ Harvey of the Denver Broncos, he's currently RB9 in best ball. Redraft, I expect him to be a little bit lower than that. I don't expect him to be RB19, probably somewhere in the mid 20s is where I expect RJ Harvey to go. But in best ball, right, guys are drafting for upside. They're willing to take more chances on guys. And you don't have to worry about when should you put a guy in your lineup or not, right? You're swinging for upside, and RJ Harvey certainly has that. But he's up 3.2 spots in the past week right now. And when I look at RJ Harvey and the Denver Broncos, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to take a chance on RJ Harvey. When you look at some of the guys that go around RJ Harvey, it's Joe Mixon, right, who is getting up there in age. You're looking at guys like James Conner, David Montgomery, right? I'm swinging for upside. I think RJ Harvey has it. I think he's going to have a really, really strong floor. And when you look at the Denver Broncos and what Sean Payton's done at the running back position, he's drafted 3 running backs inside the top 100 in his career. It's been Mark Ingram, it's been Darren Sproles, and it's been Alvin Kamara. It's a pretty great track record, right? We saw that the Jacksonville Jaguars had RJ Harvey as the guy that they wanted to draft. And they ended up not getting him because Sean Payton, quote unquote, reached on him, which is what a lot of people thought, because I think a lot of people didn't have RJ Harvey going as high. I think a lot of people, like myself, pre draft process, really liked RJ Harvey, but didn't know if a team felt how we felt, right? That happens a lot. Same with a guy like Cam Scatterby, right? Hard guy to judge pre draft process because while we loved Cam Scatterby, at least some loved him. I wouldn't say I loved Cam Scatterby, but I liked him, right? People really liked Cam Scatterby, right? But didn't know how NFL teams would like him. Would they feel the same? Same with RJ Harvey, right? But when you look at Denver and you look what they've done to the running back position, especially in the passing game, right? I think it I think this fit it's going to be great for fantasy, right? Javonte Williams last season wound up playing 17 games, right? And he ended up getting the majority of the touches in this offense, right? And when I think about, Javonte Williams and the passes and the receiving game work, I mean, Javonte Williams had 70 targets in this offense. 70 targets in this offense, right? I mean, that's an absurd amount of targets for a guy who really didn't produce much, right? You look at the other running backs in this offense, Jaleel McLaughlin, who's a bad pass blocker, had 27 targets, right? And people are worried that RJ Harvey, not a great pass blocker, right? But Sean Payton cares about pass blocking. I don't think he would take RJ Harvey and draft him if he was concerned that it wasn't something that they could coach up. There's a difference between being a really bad pass blocker and being an unwilling pass blocker, right? And being a willing pass blocker who maybe just needs refinement, right? There are some guys that just do not want to do the dirty work. I don't believe that's RJ Harvey. He's willing. It's more of about the fact that he just needs to get better at it, right? But there's a lot of targets to be had in this offense at the running back position. This is also a coaching system with Sean Payton that's been in the top 5 for majority of his career for targets to the running back position. RJ Harvey provides a skill set in fantasy football that is like pretty much what you're looking for, right? This guy, I mean, has explosiveness, can catch the football out of the backfield. Reports are that he looked really good, has looked really good so far. And when you're talking about ADP right now, RJ Harvey, at least from a redraft standpoint, if you look at Fantasy Pros, is the RB 30, right? In best ball, he's RB 19. I expect that to be somewhere in the middle. But I mean, you're looking at other rookie running backs. Trevion Henderson is RB 19. Quinshon Judkins is going to be in a bad offense. He's RB 23. Caleb Johnson, bad offense, RB 24. If you're looking for an RB2 with a good floor, yes, Caleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins are going to be those guys. If you're looking for guys that have maybe slight risk but high upside at the rookie running back positions, it's Trevion Henderson and RJ Harvey. And RJ Harvey is coming at a much cheaper cost than Henderson. But so I don't know why you wouldn't want to take a chance, right? Cam Scadaboo, another guy. I really don't mind his cost at all, right? He's RB 31 per Fantasy Pros ADP right now for redraft. And RJ Harvey, career explosive run rate, right? He led all running backs in this 2025 class for explosive run rate with 21% of his runs, right, going for 10 plus yards. I mean, I, I don't know what more you can say. That was more than Ashton Genty, right? In his career. So I like RJ Harvey. Obviously I'm a Denver fan, right? I'm a Broncos fan, but I liked RJ Harvey before the process, before he was drafted, right? If you pay attention to me and my takes and my pre-draft analysis, like I was all over RJ Harvey. So I think it's a really good landing spot. And I'm excited for that. Let's take a look at the board here though, really quick. We got 3 rounds left. I'm on the board in one spot. Looking at my team, Penix, right? I get Bijan Robinson, I get Tyler Algier to back him up, but I really don't have much when it comes to the wide receiver position in my stacks, right? I could shoot for Ray McLeod. Maybe I take him a round or two in a round or two. Maybe I go ahead and take Sam Darnold. I am going to actually take Sam Darnold. I didn't invest extremely high draft capital, right? Just got Bo Nix in the top 100 at 98. But Sam Darnold will give me a stack, right, with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I also like maybe targeting Elijah Arroyo, where I can get Evan Ingram, Elijah Arroyo stacks with Bo Nix and Sam Darnold. And then ideally, I close it out with Ray McLeod, right? That would be a good cap to this build, in my opinion. But that's kind of where I'm at, right? I appreciate you guys watching and tuning in. If you are here, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. It helps us out, right? I know. Look, we are in the early stages of this channel, trying to grow it. We've appreciated all the support so far. Scott, I appreciate you hanging out with me in the comments. I appreciate everybody else that has, a fantasy football. Fantasy football and Espanol said, how long have you had the channel? So, for those who, if you follow me on Twitter, right, you can find me on X at Supernova38. That's 2 R's, Super double R Nova 38, right? I have a pretty good following there. We did work with Face Off Sports Network before coming here, and Hoff, the FF realist, and myself and the mediators decided to start our own channel. So we opened this bad boy up about a week and a half ago. And we're going to give you guys some good content, right? We just hit 200 subscribers. We've been open for about a week, week and a half. So, that says a lot to, the people that, appreciate our content, like Scott and some other guys as well. And yeah, we appreciate everybody tuning in. I think you are you're definitely a new subscriber, Fantasy Football en Espanol. So thank you for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you could, be much appreciated. But yeah, I mean, overall, I do really like this build, guys. I'm gonna go over it in just a second. Let me type in Ray McLeod so I don't end up getting stuck here. Let's see. Ray McLeod. Don't tell me he got picked. Did he get picked? Oh no, 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 no. Someone just take him. Wow. Mm-mm-mm. Yikes. All right. Well, that's not great. I mean, at this point, I'm not pushing a stack on any of these guys. There's just no point. I mean, you could I'm not taking Kirk Cousins in a fourth quarterback. So that's not happening. Let me check out Seattle here. There's some deep quote unquote sleepers. I mean, in a crazy world, you could go with Jalen Milrow. I don't think I really need it though. I have three solid quarterbacks. I'm not in love with Darnold, but I did like the stack. Um, Bye weeks look pretty solid here though. I did not get jammed up on the bye week, so that ended up turning out pretty well. Let me see. I gotta assume he must have just went too, man. Not necessarily great. Everyone's kind of hitting their guys that they like. Yeah, Torrey Horton went at the beginning of this round. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Let me see. Who else can I target here? Is there anybody else in Seattle? Um, Noah Fant. I mean, if you think that he's going to be out of a job, maybe you go Jake Bobo. I don't want to draft Valdez Scantling, man. Oh man, let me see who else is from Denver. Is Devon Vele left for the Broncos? I ended up with so many Broncos. All right, I'm gonna take Devon Vele. I feel like I'm super overextended on Broncos here, though. Maybe I just won't go for a stack. I'm gonna queue him up and let me see if there's anybody else here. Um, yeah, I'm not going to take. I mean, I'd rather take a chance on a running back this late than a wide receiver. To be honest with you, I'll go with Taj Brooks. Right, bigger chance for a bigger workload than some of these wide receivers. I do like Devon Vele. Remember that. I think he's going to be much more involved than people are giving him credit for. I think he'll be the wide receiver too. I think Evan Ingram's going to be the second highest target receiver in that offense. But in terms of actual wide receivers, I think it's going to be Devon Vele. So yeah. Fantasy football and Espanol said RJ Harvey is too expensive. Pacheco's ADP of 90 and the projections are the same. Good channel. Also beginning a channel. Hey, well, cool, man. Good luck. Appreciate that. I'll give you a sub for sure. If you want to go ahead and do the same, that would be much appreciated. The thing I would say about Pacheco is, and then I'll go over my roster here and close this out. But what I would say about Pacheco is my concern is the receiving work, right? I mean, they just brought in Brashad Smith, who is a converted wide receiver. I think he's going to play that Jerick McKinnon role. And there just wasn't a lot of explosiveness, right, with Isaiah Pacheco last year that I have some concerns about. And I'm hoping he can get back to that. I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is necessarily a bad dart throw, so to speak. But, I mean, when you look at Isaiah Pacheco, I don't see them projected the same, to be completely honest with you, at least from a ceiling perspective. I think RJ Harvey's receiving work is going to give him a good floor. I just don't know with Pacheco, man. I mean, I'm trying to look to see where Pacheco's ADP is. He's going at 87 right now. So right behind Brian Robinson Jr., Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard. I'd rather all those running backs, to be honest, over Isaiah Pacheco. I got to be completely honest with you. That I mean, that's just where I'm at. RJ Harvey is trending up recently, though. Like I said, he's up 3 spots in the last week. So there's a lot of steam there, and I don't want to get over my skis with Harvey. I'm trying to temper expectations for sure. But what I would say is I do think he's going to be given a really, really good chance to get the lion's share of that workload. And as a receiver, I think we're going to see a lot from him. And I think he's gonna be well worth the squeeze. We'll see how much higher he goes up in that ADP before the season starts. But all right, let me go ahead and read off the build here and how I ended up shaking out with my squad. So I'm gonna shoot. Oh, shoot! Hold on. The draft is closing out, so I gotta give me 1 second there. What the heck? All right, hold on. Underdog is um, blowing me right now. I gotta reopen Underdog. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll read this off. Hold on. All right, let's see. Just bear with me, folks. Scott, I don't know if you're here, man, but again, I appreciate you for sticking in here. Um, Appreciate you, man. Underdog is trying to load. Here we go. All right, it should be coming up on your screen. Here we go. All right, let me go back. Why I don't know why Underdog closed me out like that. That was kind of shot. All right, let's see. I gotta think maybe we're in here. No, nope, that's not it. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. BBM. All right, so I don't know which one of these it is. Let me pull this one up and see. Yep. All right. That is it. Okay. All right. So I end up with a. Let me move this to the center of the screen here for you guys. So I end up with Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Sam Darnold. I actually make out. I don't worry too much on buys. Um, at least at the skill positions at quarterback, of course. I mean, you only take so many. It's hard to kind of make up ground if you're taking guys that are double stacked on buys. But I get Penix, I get Sam Darnold, I get Bo Nix. So I like that as well. And then Bijan Robinson, right, to stack with Penix. He's my RB1 this year. Jonathan Taylor, right? I go back to back at the running back position. Just too much value there. I go with RJ Harvey as well. Get the Denver stack as well as I get the Bijan and Penix stack. Cam Scattaboo, good with that. Tyler Algier to back up Bijan with another Atlanta stack as well. Rico Dowdle. I actually think Rico Dowdle pretty solid value. I mean, going at the 170, I expect him to have a role. Chuba Hubbard, I don't expect his opportunity share to still be what it is, what we saw last year. I think Chuba Hubbard's going to be fine, but I think Rico Dowdle is going to get some opportunities there. I took Taj Brooks with the last pick. I like that as well. Similar to Chuba Hubbard, I feel the same about Chase Brown in that I think their workloads get eaten into a little bit. They got some pretty high opportunity shares with not a lot of competition behind them. So I like Taj Brooks late there. Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I start off with the third pick there. I take him to stack with Gino. I'm not Gino. Still thinking Seattle. Sam Darnold. There is a little bit of concern. I like JSN, but a little bit of concern about that offensive line and we've seen Sam Darnold under pressure, not the prettiest sight in the world. So I'm hoping that that offensive line ends up being better, which I expect him to be slightly better, not a top unit, but can't hard to be much worse than they were last year. Cortland Sutton, I stack him with Bo Nix. I get Ricky Pearsall, who I still think is one of the better values on the board. I take Jaden Reed, who I'm not in love with Jaden Reed, but for the upside, I'm fine with it because I don't know how high Sutton's upside is. And I just wanted to get some more upside there. It's also partially why I took Marvin Mims because I think there's some upside there. He had a really strong stretch to the end of the season last year. And from a separation standpoint, he was one of the better separators in the NFL last year. Maybe he takes another step forward. I don't expect the volume to be there for Marvin Mims, but he's a really good best ball target. And then Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Wan'Dale Robinson could be the best value in football for fantasy this year, man. I honestly, man, Wan'Dale Robinson, like we're looking at a guy that had over 130 targets last year, right? Like he's being drafted as the wide receiver 68. He finished as wide receiver 36 last season. Is the ceiling extremely high? I don't know, probably not, right? But he had a breakout year 3, right? In terms of at least from a target standpoint, getting a better quarterback. I know that the yards per route run and yards per target were not that high last year, right? That was some of the concern with Wan'Dale Robinson, but he also had 2 more yards per target uh, in his rookie season than he did last year, right? Who's to say that that can't go up this year, and who's to say he can't get better, right? I mean, he earned a ton of targets last year. So I like Wanda Robinson. He feels like not don't get crazy about this, but he feels like the easy button in that offense, right? Malik Neighbors feels like an easy button too, but Wandale really more just the easy button on the underneath, the safety valve, right? A guy that just consistently can be underneath, right? And so I like Wandale Robinson. I think you're gonna be hard pressed to find somebody with this kind of quote unquote floor. I don't love drafting for floor in later rounds, but in a wide receiver room like this where you might need a little bit of floor because Mims and Jaden Reed's floors are very low. He's going to give a cushion maybe for those weeks that, those guys don't have, many receptions to bring that floor up. Then I get Evan Ingram and I get Elijah Arroyo. Little bit of risk there, I would say. Evan Ingram, right, a guy that's been injured. I love him at his cost. Him and David Njoku are my favorite tight ends right now, outside of the top 3 in terms of just their cost. It just Evan Ingram, I think, is going to be the second highest target player on that offense this year. Elijah Arroyo, right, rookie, putting a lot of chips into him to be my tight end too, behind a guy like Evan Ingram who has had some health issues, in the past. But overall, I'd say this is about a B to B plus lineup. Not my favorite, but not a bad team at all either. Let me go ahead and take a peek at the chat. If you guys are here, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. We got 7 people here on YouTube and a lot of people here on Twitter. So again, appreciate you guys for tuning in. And let me take a look at just the last couple questions before I sign off here. Fantasy Football Espanol said, it's not that I'm in love with Pacheco. He's just a perfect example of why Harvey is being overdrafted. There are plenty of running backs going later, projected volume and role. I don't agree with the role part, though. Harvey's going to be the guy that's likely the receiving back in that offense. I don't see that with Pacheco. Let's pull up Pacheco from last year. And again, the tough thing about evaluating with Pacheco is he came off of an injury, right? He might have came back too soon. So there's some positive. There's a possibility of that, right? He was a big winner in the draft this year where they didn't bring anybody there, but 3.7 yards per carry, like that's hard to ignore. 8.1 points per game last year. His rookie season, right, where he had 5 touchdowns, 830 yards, he was averaging 7.9 points per game, right? Like in 2023, he had a good season, right, where he had 205. Hold on, let me plug in my laptop here. Oh, hold on, fellas. Hold on. So when you look at Pacheco in 2023, right, 15.3 points, right, points per game, 14th in the NFL, 9 total touchdowns, right, 44 receptions. The receptions were there, but in 2022 rookie season in 17 games, right, he had 13 receptions, right? It's just I just I guess I get concerned, right? The breakaway runs. He had 1 breakaway run last year. 1. That's 73rd. 1.2% of his rushes last year he had a breakaway run. And a breakaway run is 15 or more yards, right? Like he just wasn't explosive last year. Brashard Smith is going to be a guy that's likely going to be that Jerick McKinnon receiving back role. And I think RJ Harvey can be that receiving back role too. So I just don't agree with the role part there. And you said the opportunity cost at 50 is just too high. I don't think he's going to be there. That's not going to be his cost in redraft, right? This is best ball. I don't expect him to be that cost at redraft, but best ball and redraft costs are different. We're looking for ceiling, at least for me. I'm looking for ceiling in best ball as much as I can, and he's got ceiling, right? If you're saying there's risk, sure, there's risk. He's a rookie, right? Um, but I mean, he's in a room that's not crowded, and and Sean Payton's spoken really highly about him. And there's a lot of targets that off. I mean, Sean Payton, Javonte Williams had 70 targets last year. So Scott said I'm here, was doing a sleeper draft. Thank you for that. He said, if I go Walker or Harvey this year in redraft, but I do have Wood for Walker this year, either a gut feeling or gas. It could be gas. It could be not. I mean, I love the fact that it's Kubiak's system now with Walker. Really, with Walker, it's about the health, and obviously Charbonnet is nipping on his heels a little bit, but I do think Walker is going to be the guy unless he gets hurt, which I do worry opens up the possibility for Charbonnet to take the job. But Walker just has to stay healthy. But that system with Kubiak, it's hard to not get excited about a running back in a Kubiak system. Um, yeah, I mean, I love Charbonnet. Well, Walker is good. Yeah, I totally agree. And then Scott said, I love Pacheco, but he's small and a violent runner. Is he going to be available all year? That's also part of it too, right? Like he's a violent runner, right? He's had the issues with the health, right? Obviously, he had the injury. In 2022, he played 17 games. In 2023, he played 14 until he got injured, right? Last year he played 7. But I just don't know how many catches are going to be there for him. And without those catches, Kareem Hunt's a guy that scored 17 total touchdowns last year. He caught 23 passes, and came off the street. Now Kareem Hunt wasn't lighting the world on fire, 3.6 yards per carry, which was about the same as Pacheco last year. But I'm not going to hate on Pacheco taking him. His cost is very cheap. So that's what I will say. Pacheco's cost is cheap. If you want to take a swing on him, I think it's totally fair. It's not high risk. That's the best way I can put it, right? Pacheco could be a good low end RB2, and that's totally fine, right? I think RJ Harvey has a higher ceiling than that. But that's going to do it for me, folks. Thank you so much. If you haven't liked the show, please do so. I got 5 thumbs up, but we have 7 people here watching on YouTube, which means some of you that are in here right now did not give me a thumbs up, which would be much appreciated. We have some stuff cooking, right? We're on the verge of dropping a Discord. We have some other stuff coming down the pipe. So excited for that. If you were with us at Face Off, you know what we can do. We're going to provide some good content here. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in and supporting us. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And I'll